Ladies and gentlemen, this is Joe's Classic Video Games back with another cool pinball repair video for you today. We are working on a Gottlieb College Queens pinball machine. Now this is not the same exact one that we have done a video on before here on our channel. This is actually a completely different cabinet. Whenever we got it, it had all of the side art sanded off of it and was painted solid white. So we parts of it had shelf paper on it too. So we painted it a two-tone color to make it look a little better than it did, but it still doesn't have the original side art and all that on it. There's no stencils available for this cabinet, so the only way to do it would be to paint it all in by hand using a picture, and we just don't really have the time to do that on a game of this caliber. Now, with that said, it's still a cool game, and we're glad that we're able to save it, but it doesn't work yet. So we're going to troubleshoot it here, figure out what's going on with it, and film a little video. Now we've already been through all of it. We cleaned all of the switches, all of the relays, all of the stepper units, all of the score reels, everything. Everything has been cleaned. Now on the score reels, you see how they're all set on 1. That's because whenever I clean the score reels, what I'll do is I'll set it on 1, because you have to look at the score reels moving. So I'll set them all on 1. Just so that whenever the game starts, every single score reel has to return to 0. And by doing that, the first time I get it to start, I can make sure that all the score reels are resetting. I'm also working on this Grand Prix, Williams Grand Prix here, that I'm doing separate videos on, and you can see I've done the same thing on it. I've got everything set to 1. One of them somehow I set on 2. But as I go through the score reels and clean them, I don't leave them set on 0. I put them on something other than 0 so that whenever you start the game, for the first time at least, it'll have to reset all of them. So on this one, we have them all on 1. We have the everything, all of the rubbers and all that on the play field, but we haven't had any luck in getting it to start. So I'm going to try hitting the start button. You see we've got credits on it. We've got 15 credits. So I'm just going to show you how we troubleshoot them. So I'm going to hit the start button here. And you hear that it does something, but does not start the game. There's a piece of paper that goes here that we'll print up here in a little bit, but basically this is the game over light. Ball 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So the game over light should go off. Ball 1 light should come on. There's a ball in there, so it should kick it out to the out lane. It should reset all of the score reels to 0, but none of that's happening. So I've got the schematics. We're going to look through that. Now a word about schematics. Gottlieb is a family-owned company, so they do not like people making copies of their schematics and distributing them around online. So I can't show you like the entire schematic or anything like that, but I think they probably won't have a problem if I show you just a little piece of it while we're tracking down what's going on with it. So we'll film all that and show you how to walk through them. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to so if you're in a similar situation where your machine won't start, if it's been serviced where most of the stuff is pretty clean, sometimes if it's a machine that nobody's worked on for a long time and it's been sitting for 40 years or whatever, when you hit start, it's not going to do anything because there's problems all over the damn place. I mean, there's bad connections everywhere, there's switches that are dirty, there might be relays missing or burnt up. So if the thing hasn't been serviced, you're kind of chasing your tail if you don't go through and clean all of the switches and work on all the stepper units and work on the switches on the score motor and all of that. But we've already done that, so we're to the point where it won't do anything. Now you see the tilt light is on over there. It's on that guy's briefcase, right, or his book. So the thing is tilted, but that's what it does whenever it first comes up. They purposefully tilt whenever they start so that the game won't start in the middle of a game that might have not ended whenever you turned off the machine. So the first thing I'm going to do, since I'm hitting start and I'm hearing something, is I'm going to pop open the hood and we're going to hit start again and see if I can tell what the hell's going on, because you can hear something's going on in there. It sounds like the score motor's turning. So we'll see if any of the relays are working or what's happening whenever we hit the start button, because on the schematics that'll help us figure out what the problem must be. So here's inside the game. I'm going to hit the start button again so you can see what's going on. So watch for anything. Alright, did you catch it? So obviously the score motor is turning on the left. Basically you need that thing to be able to turn because it gives animation basically to the machine. So that needs to turn because it can hit different switches and turn different things on and etc. So not only is that turning, but when you look over here, see what's going on? It's pulling in this relay, which is the replay button relay, or the V relay, and it's also pulling in this relay, S, which is the start control relay. So that's our clue. That's what we need to know. So let's go check out the schematics and maybe we can figure out what it should be doing next. Okay, so here is a portion of the schematics, which is the area that concerns the replay button, which is what they call the start button. So that replay button, when we press it, something does happen, right? So because of that, we pretty much know that the button works, right? All it does is it connects from this side, which is one lug off of the transformer, through motor 2B, which is normally closed. See the two lines with the strike through it? It means it's normally closed and it's in its sitting position. And then the power runs through an anti-cheat switch, which is like a slam switch on the door, I think. And it's normally closed, so in a at-rest position, it's normally closed. And then it goes through the SB relay, right? So the SB relay, it says up here, is, let's find it. It's on the control bank. The SB relay is the start relay. So that's the one on the control bank. That's not the one, that's not to be confused with this one, which is the start control relay. The SB relay is on that. That's the control bank. And a lot of these Gottlibs are very similar, so if we figure this one out, it's going to be similar on other ones. Yeah, over there, the fourth one back says SB start control. Nope, I'm wrong. Where's the SB? It's down there. Start relay. It's all the way at the end. Second one from the end. Okay, so the power is connecting. Where are we? Through the motor 2B, which is normally closed, the anti-cheat switch, which is normally closed, the SB relay, which is normally closed. Now, there's an orange wire that connects to that runs down here to the coin chutes, right? All three coin chutes. That's because if you put a quarter in, or a dime in, or a nickel in, whatever it's set on, it's just like you press the replay button, right? But we're pressing the replay button because we've got credits on it because we've set it on free play, or I think it's got 15 credits on it. So you press the replay button, and then it connects over to this side through a normally closed switch on motor 1C. It connects through PB4, which is player. Let me see if I can find it. PB4 is the fourth player relay. So in other words, if four players have already started, that relay turns on, and then you can no longer press start again because you can't play a 5-player game. And then it connects through the W relay. So the W relay is the third shoot relay. So I guess that means if you put too many quarters through it or something, I don't know. And then the zero position replay unit. So see this? So if you are at the 0 position on the replay unit, you can't press start. So what does that mean? That means if there's no credits on the game, you can't press start, right? And then it finally connects over and turns on the V relay. So the V relay is that one that we're seeing turn on, the replay button relay. So that much is working. So the start button is working completely fine. We don't have to worry about the damn start button. So it turns on the V relay, right? So let's write some of this down. So the V relay comes on, and then we also know that the start, what's the one called, the start whatever relay is coming on. What are they calling it? The start control relay, S. Start control relay, so we're seeing it. All right, so I'm going to look through it and figure out where the what the V relay does. So there'll be certain switches on the V relay. We'll see what they do and see if all of that's happening. Okay. Okay, so it took me about 5 minutes to figure out where all the V things are. So there are 3 switches on the V relay. So when it pulls in, you press the button, it pulls the V relay in. When it pulls in, it connects 3 switches. And so one of them is this one, right next to it. So it's a hold switch. So that's so that whenever you let go of the replay button, the V relay stays held in because it has just closed this switch on itself, which connects itself to power running over here. So that will stay on until the anti-cheat switch is disconnected or the motor 2B switch is disconnected. Now remember, that motor starts turning, so eventually that switch is going to disconnect, right? But for now, the V relay holds itself on by its own switch. And then it also turns on this S relay, which we're seeing, right? So by turning that switch on, so this switch is also pulled in on the V relay, and when it does, it also connects power through it to turn on the S relay. So that's why we're seeing the S relay come on, right? And then the other thing that it does is up here, it pulls in, and as long as the 0 position switch on the replay unit is closed, so as long as you have more than 1 credit, it turns on the subtract replay unit. So basically on the replay unit, it subtracts 1 credit. That's not happening, but a lot of times that's been messed with to put it on free play, and we don't really care if that happens, so I'm not too worried about that. But so that's the 3 things that the V relay does. So its main purpose is to hold itself on and to turn on the S relay, and it is turning on the S relay, right? So what does that tell us? That tells us that the V relay is working fine. So now what do? We look to see if the S relay is working fine, right? So now we're on to it. So I'll look at it in the cabinet, see what all switches are on it, and then I'll show you how we can track down what it does after it turns on. Okay folks, so after digging around for about 10 minutes, there are 5 switches on the S relay. So remember, the V relay is pulling in the S relay. So the S relay, whenever it pulls in, one of the switches is right here on it, which is the same thing. It's a hold switch. It holds it on. So once the S relay is on, it holds itself on with a with its own switch, right? And that's how it gets power until motor 2B drops out, right? So that's one of the switches. The second one is it turns the motor on. Now remember, here is the motor, and it can be turned on by any of these switches on any of these relays, and one of them is the S relay. So that's why our motor is turning, because the switch on the S relay is making it turn, right? And it turns 1 revolution, and then the S relay is dropping out because it's opening this motor switch, and once the S relay turns off, that switch is no longer connected and the motor stops. Now the motor turns itself, holds itself on through its own hold switch, but once it gets past that spot, when that switch opens, the motor turns itself off, right? So but we think the hold is working, we think the motor switch is working, right? And so the other thing that it does is over here, it turns on a bunch of stuff farther up the playfield. I don't think that has anything to do with it. But right at that area that we were just looking at, where we were saying that the V relay subtracts a replay from the replay unit, if you look, the only way it gets power is through the S relay. Now we're not hearing it subtract a replay from the back, and so I was saying maybe that's the V, or maybe it's been messed with. But look, if this S comes in, then you've got power coming down through here, through these motor switches as it turns, right? And so this 2, 3, and 4 are tripped by that. And then the subtract relay unit, and then also this SB relay. That SB relay is never tripping. So there's some kind of problem with that. That should be the next one to go, right? So we're also not getting PB 3 and 4 tripping, but I think 2 is. So I want to research that some more. If 2 is, then the S relay must be working, but if SB isn't, then maybe this ZB switch isn't. So we're right here in this area is our next thing that we need to figure out. So let me look in the machine a little bit and see if we can figure anything out. So on this control bar, this is the PB2, PB3, and PB4. PB2 is tripped. If I pull that back out, you see 2, 3, and 4 aren't tripped. Whoa, that was violent. 2, 3, and 4 aren't tripped, so if I hit start, 2 trips. 3 and 4 won't. So that gives us a little clue. So we're back in the same area. We're trying to get SB to go, right? This S switch is how PB2 trips. So it's working fine. 3 and 4 aren't tripping, but I don't know why. There's probably something going on. There's a who knows? We'll look into that. But what we know is this S switch must be fine, or that can't trip. So we're trying to get the SB to go. So 2 isn't working. I mean, this is working. This must be working. We might have a problem with motor 2C. Oh yeah, look at this. Okay, so well, you saw when I hit start, PB2 trips, but PB3 does not. It should trip if PB2 is tripped. See how there's a switch on PB2? But it has to run through motor 2C as well, right? So motor 2C also, so motor 2C makes PB3 trip. It makes the subtract replay unit go, which isn't happening. It makes SB trip, which isn't happening. You know, there's other things involved here, but right? So all signs point to switch motor 2C is messed up. So if you look over here on the schematics, it shows you the score motor and where the positions of the switches are. So this is pretty confusing, but this is where 2 is, and then C is the position that's equal with the plate. So it's what runs around the edge of the plate there. And it shows you that position 2 has a 2A and 2B on C. We'll have to look at that. But number 2, C. Now you can also look at the colors of the wires going to it. So there will be a green and red wire on one side, and there will be a slate and green wire on the other side. The GR might mean gray. It says it means green. So slate and green on one side and green and red on the other side of motor 2C. Okay folks, so I have turned off the machine. This is the second position switches, and this is 2C, right? The ones that are level with this thing, right? So we're looking for a slate and red and a green and red wire on one of the sets of switches. And that's what we have on the very outside here. There's your green and red. And there's your slate and I don't know, what did it say? Whatever it said. This is the switch. So I've turned it off, and watch what happens when I turn it. Now look at the outside switch. Going all the way out. So see, we're getting to this place where it drops, right? So it's going to drop close. But it's not touching. I don't know if you can see it. We got so much shadow going on. See the gap between it? They're not touching. So I'm going to bend that switch a little bit, and then we'll see if we hit start, if it gets us a little farther along. Okay, so I haven't turned it on yet, so we'll hit the switch and see if anything happens. All right, sounds like the score motor turned a little bit, so let's hit start and see if that switch changed anything. All right, so we're farther along. It has turned on the lights on the playfield. You hear how the score motor just keeps turning? So we've got our clue in the back. The second, third, and fourth players reset, but the first didn't. Okay, so if you look up here, here's all of the score reels and how they all reset. So see that. Add first one's unit. First one's unit run out. And it does it through X1, right? And then this second player one's unit. Second one's unit run out, and it does it through X2, and then X3, and X3. So if you look, X1 is involved in all of the scores on the first player, and only the scores on the first player, right? So X2 is what runs all of the second player, and X3 runs the third player and the fourth player. X2 also runs some of the third player. All of those are working fine, but none of the first ones are, and that's all that X1 does, relay X1. What the run out means is when it gets to 0, that switch opens, and so that relay can no longer turn the coil, the score unit, right? Okay, so how does X1 turn on? So here's X1. Here's X2, here's X3, right? So X3 is working. See where it says run out switches on the score units? So any of those switches, if they're closed, so if any of those scores that it controls, any of the score rails that it controls are not on 0, it will provide power to X3, right? And X3 gets its power through, ta-da, the SB relay, which we've got going. So the SB relay is making that work, right? Okay, and then there is a normally closed switch on X3. So whenever X3 closes again, it sends power over a little bit farther, right? And then if any of these score reels are not on 0, this switch on that score reel will be closed, which will provide power to X2 to turn it on, right? So when all of these get right, it will turn off X2. And when it turns off X2, it goes back to its state where it's, you know, in a closed state, which will turn on X1 through any of the 4 switches on the first player score reels. So that's never happening. So the problem almost has to be this switch, because the power is getting this far and making these turn on, right? But it won't get through there. So we got to find that switch and fix it. Okay, so I don't know how well this will show, but this is X3, which does some of them. This is X2. This one's working, but this one never turns on. So it said that there's a normally closed switch on this one that turns on this one, right? So in the manual, in the schematics, it says that it's orange and blue and green and blue, which is this switch right here, right? Now if you look very carefully, whenever this relay moves, it's not actually touching. It looks like it's touching, but notice how the small blade never moves whenever the thing goes back to it. It's because it's not quite touching. So I'm going to move that a little bit, and then we'll see if that gets us any farther. So when I turned it back on, it reset everything to 0, but I set some of them back just so you can see. So I'm going to hit the start button and let's see what happens. Okay, so we're getting far enough that for whatever reason 10 points keep scoring, but the ball is not kicking out. So that's our next clue. So this is what it's doing. D and F are resetting over and over and over again, which is the left very target score relay. The right one is not resetting. And on the play field, both of the very target scores are resetting. If you push one up, it stops. And it kind of sounded like maybe it went back to zeros. No, it didn't. It's at 1060. So that's what the ball in the out hole. So we got something crazy going on here. Okay, so here's what happened. Here's what's happening. I just don't know why it's happening. So here are the, let me find them. Here are the very target resets. So those are resetting, and the reason that they're resetting, see, that's the coil on the left very target and the coil on the right very target. When those energize, it resets it, right? So whenever those get power is whenever the D relay is not pulled in. So it normally is connected, so it normally gives those power. So when the D relay is not pulled in, those get power. So that's happening. You saw it clicking on and off, right? So down here is the D relay. So the way the D relay gets pulled in is by a 0 position switch on the right vary target and a 0 position switch on the left vary target. So there's a wire that goes from the 0 position, jumps across the 2 little wipers on the vary target, goes over to the other vary target, jumps across the wipers on that, and that's what pulls the D relay in. So in other words, when the game starts, the D relay has power running through it that energizes these vary target releases. They pull in. Whenever that happens, the spring makes the vary target go forward, which makes it go to the 0 position. Once those 0 positions are connected, it pulls the D relay in. By the D relay pulling in, it turns off this damn switch right there. It opens that switch, which means that the reset coils are no longer energized. Okay? You with me so far? So it's sitting there on the playfield at the beginning of the game with the D relay pulled in and the vary target release coils not energized. So the D relay is held in as long as you're on 0 and as long as motor 2B doesn't open up. So what's happening is as the score motor turns, it eventually is opening up motor 2B, which is normally closed, right? And whenever it opens that up, it kills the D relay. You saw it coming on and going off, coming on and going off. It kills the D relay. When it kills the D relay, it reconnects that switch, which makes the vary targets connect again. I mean, the vary target reset coils pull in. So it's all of that is how it should be. But what I can't figure out is why this F is coming on. So the F, and the reason I'm tracking this down is because obviously the game's not working right. So if you find something that's doing something that it shouldn't, that's probably a clue of what's messed up. So this F relay, if I can get it to focus. Okay, so the F relay, the only way that it is held in is through the D relay, a switch on the D relay, right? But if the switch on the D relay is pulled in, that will only work if there's the switch on the left vary target is connected. So there is a switch on there that when it gets off of 0, it connects that switch. That switch is not connected, and it's still making the F relay pulse. And then the other way that it can do it is through itself. It has a F switch here that holds it in, and so the purpose of that is the D relay turns it on, and then this holds it in with a switch on itself until the score motor turns around and opens up switch 2B again. So since that switch 2B is involved with all this stuff that's acting up, I'm going to check that out, and then I'm going to check out that switch on the F relay. I've already checked it out before. I didn't see anything wrong with it, but I'm trying to figure out why the F is turning on. There's no reason that it should be. So I'm going to look at all these switches involved. The one on the left vary target is definitely fine. I keep checking it. So we're going to check out the F relay and the motor switch. Okay, pinball sleuths, I have figured out another clue. So see how we're at 588, 688, 788. Right? So we're scoring 100 points every time it does it right now, right? That's because this light is lit up, 10 times value on the left vary target. If I switch that to where now this one is 10 times value, that means this one is just the normal value. And now it's scoring 10 points. So it definitely has something to do with this damn left vary target that keeps trying to reset. So that F pulling in, for whatever reason, for whyever it's doing that, it's scoring. And I can't figure out how the hell it's pulling in. I think I have found it. I haven't fixed it yet, but I think I found it. So guys and girls, tell me if you think I got it right. All right, so this is the D relay, the vary target reset relay. Now remember, our problem is that the F keeps going off too. What the hell? So when you look at this D relay, what do you notice? All of the wires have been resoldered because this relay's been replaced or something. So what else do you notice? There are two, actually 3 white and brown wires. So we've got 2 that are white and brown right there, and then we have 1 that is brown and white, but it looks just like white and brown because it's one way or the other. Okay, so these 2 white and brown ones down here, see where they connect? They are on the switch that has an orange wire. Now the switch is not connected like it shouldn't be. And then this one that I would call brown and white, but is also white and brown, is connected to the switch with a green wire. Right? Okay, so back to our schematics, possibly for the final time. If you look at the D relay, there is a green wire that comes over to a switch, the D switch, and then connects to a white and brown wire. Now, when it goes through the switch, see the green wire goes to the D switch, and on the other side, see that little black dot? That's because it means that it splits there, so it needs 2 wires there. So the green wire is connecting to 2 white and brown wires. And then up here on the F relay, you have a brown and white wire that connects to the D relay, the D switch, and on the other side is an orange wire. So you have a brown and white wire that should be switched with an orange wire, and then you have a green wire that should be switched with 2 white and brown wires. We have 2 white and brown wires that are switched with an orange wire, and a green wire that is switched with 1 brown and white wire. So I think what happened was they swapped this relay and they got it almost perfect, but 2 of these wires they got backwards. So I'm going to get out the soldering iron, I'm going to swap this wire and those 2 wires, and I think that's going to fix it. Alright, I swapped the 2 wires, let's see what happens. Yeah, that's right, we fixed it, people. But this video's too long, so we'll do the rest of it, finishing it up, on the next video. So make sure to subscribe to us, and that will be up soon. We've already filmed it all. We just haven't uploaded it yet. But it'll be the next upload. So subscribe to us, give us a thumbs up for taking all this trouble. Cannot believe we've tracked that one down. Reversed wires. How the hell was I supposed to figure that out? But yet we did, right? So leave your comments below. We'll see you on the next video where we get the rest of it done. And hope you've enjoyed it so far.